Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We have kind of a full house. That's good. Today, we are here for a city council meeting. It is December 6th, 2021. We'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Weifenbach. Here. Roberts. Stroman.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Lehman. Here. Solomon. Here. Evans. Here. Drew.
Here. Armstrong.
Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Is Randy Phipps here for our invocation? We have someone here specifically for the invocation? Okay, well, in place of the invocation tonight, I'd like to read something and afterward ask for a moment of silence, and then we'll go into the Pledge of Allegiance. This is an executive proclamation. This last week or so, Rapid City lost a very important person, a community icon. And I just want to read a little bit about her. Whereas Marcella LeBeau led an exemplary life, providing a lasting legacy of service and contributions to the community and country. And whereas her life's contributions have been recognized locally, statewide, and even nationally as a role model for all people, especially to members of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, of which she was an enrolled member, and also served as a member of the tribal council in the 1990s. And whereas among her many well-known accomplishments and achievements, just prior to her death last month, she was inducted into the National Native American Hall of Fame. In 2020, she was given a leadership award from the National Congress of American Indians and was also recognized by USA Today as one of the most influential women of the century as part of the publication's commemoration of the 19th Amendment centennial anniversary. And whereas in 2004, Marcella was chosen as one of the 100 United States World War II veterans to receive the French Legion of Honor Medal. In 2006, she was inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. She received the Women in History Award from the Spirit of the Prairie chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution in 2016. In 2018, Marcella received an honorary doctorate degree in public service from the South Dakota State University. And whereas Marcella earned a degree in nursing in 1942, and she became a registered nurse. At age 24, she enlisted in the Army Nurse Corps and became a combat nurse during World War II. After the war, Marcella spent 31 years working as a nurse and other positions for Indian Health Service on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation, retiring as the Director of Nursing. And whereas Marcella turned 102 years old this past October, she continued to inspire, motivate, and influence generations of people with her approach to life, her commitment and passion to making the world a better place as well as the lives of others, up until her passing on November 21st. Now, therefore, I, Steve Allender, Mayor of Rapid City, on behalf of the Rapid City Common Council and the citizens of Rapid City, share our collective, heartfelt condolences to Marcella's family and salute her life, her service to our nation and community, and her generosity and passion to help others, and do proclaim December 7th, 2021 as Marcella LeBeau Day in Rapid City. I think that's that's a legacy that we would all be lucky enough to achieve in our lives. And the only personal contact I ever had with Marcella LeBeau was during a parade when she was nearing 100 years old and she was on a float and waiting to go. She was sitting on the float, and I went over and met her. And it was cold and windy, and I complained a lot about the wind, and she was sitting there proudly, and I shook her hand, and I just remember how warm her hand was. And, you know, I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't to feel that warmth coming from someone with so many years. And I guess that's how I'll remember her. But anyway, if you wouldn't mind, we just stand, have a moment of silence, and when we're finished with that, if you could join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone. Now, moving on with the agenda, the next item is to adopt the agenda. This is a point in the meeting where the city council may adopt the agenda or written or make certain alterations to it. I have an alteration I'd like to offer to the city council. And this is due to a procedural necessity that we move item number 4 to the public hearing for items 46 through 50. So as soon as we open that public hearing for items 46 through 50, I will read number 4 into the record because it has to be a public hearing, and then there will be a presentation at that time. So, council offer a motion to that effect, please. Okay, motion to make that alteration by Bill Evans and a second by Pat Jones then. Thank you. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. And all opposed say no. Okay, motion passes. Now, on to item number 1. This is to confirm the appointment of Vicki Fisher as Director of the Community Development Department and authorize the Mayor and Finance Director to sign the employment contract. And before we take a motion and a vote here, I'll just tell you that I've had the privilege of working with Vicki Fisher for a number of years, but in the past, well, I think it's 6 months, but Vicki will probably tell us it's probably 8 months, as the interim director of community development. So in the beginning, she wanted to try this position on for size. And we've had a unique opportunity to watch her and grow with her and learn with her. I've got very good reports back from the staff, from her customers, and also from her peer group. And now she and others have concluded that she's the right fit for this position, and I'm happy to bring her name forward for council consideration. So saying that, we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I would like to confirm the appointment of Vicki Fisher as Director of the Community Development Department and authorize you and the Finance Director to sign the employment contract.
Second. Okay, we have a second by John Roberts to that effect. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, item number 2, we'll have the swearing in of Vicki Fisher as the Director of the Rapid City Community Development Department, and we'll call on Tracy Davis, Assistant Finance Officer, to administer the oath. Move if you want.
I, Vicki Fisher, solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion, that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of the Community Development Director within the Office of Community Development, Rapid City, South Dakota, according to the law and to the best of my ability. So help me God. Thank you.
Well, let's just take a minute. Let's just take 1 minute.
Pardon? Yeah, right now, there's 3. 2 of the ocean, 1 of your employment.
Where you say, anyone here have reason?
To object.
So help them God. That's it. Thank you.
Congratulations. Looking forward to it. Let's stand over here so Daryl can take a picture. Okay, folks, next on the agenda, we have a presentation, Black Hills War Monument Project presentation, Mr. Ed Mandazzo.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Ed Manzano, and I'm here on behalf of our new nonprofit association, the Black Hills War Monument Association. We want to share our vision to update this war monument that's located right behind us in the park across the street. I'm briefly going to cover the history of the monument, the purpose of our update, estimated cost, and of course the great heritage that Rapid City has. This monument that you see in the photo was dedicated July 5th, 1991. I know that because I was the project officer from Ellsworth Air Force Base, along with C.A. Mitchell, the VFW commander. We erected that monument to honor veterans from World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Desert Storm. And the plaque ends at Desert Storm. So our association, the members of it are retired veterans. We would like to update it, first of all, to bring it up to 2021 to include Iraq and Afghanistan. So there would be 6 plaques instead of 5. That's the first update. The large 10-ton stone that you see came from Crazy Horse Mountain to honor Native American veterans. When we originally did it, there was not an eagle there. That's been added over the years. And there was currently an American flag. Our project would also involve installing 6 service flags on either side of the U.S. flag, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and Space Force, as well as the POW MIA flag and the state of South Dakota flag. On May 31st, there was a ceremony of this year where we were honoring our war dead. And we were reading the names of some of the heroic actions of many Black Hills soldiers. We read 10 different names from 10 different conflicts. And when it was done, one of the members of one of the families, I believe it was Mr. James Fasthorse, his son Vincent died on a ship that was delivering the atomic bomb that was used to end the war, World War II. He said, I believe it was him, said that it would be nice to see the names of the soldiers engraved in granite, like many, many monuments do. So this comment sparked our group. Our group includes myself. I'm retired U.S. Air Force. Mr. Travis Lassiter is here. He's retired U.S. Air Force also. Mr. Derek Flom, unfortunately, his father passed away. He's also retired Air Force. We have Z. Salinas, retired U.S. Marine Corps here. Lisa Gendry, retired United States Army. We also have a Gold Star mother. Miss Betty Lewis is here this evening. and we have a Gold Star brother, Mr. Stephen Kutzall. So that's the group of committee that we started looking at plans, costs, and design in June of 2021, and here 6 months later, we think that we have a vision and a plan that we'd like to share with you. To update the monument would mean adding the wars of the past 20 years, which would be Iraq, Afghanistan, and the ongoing war on terror, and we've also included Ellsworth members who were involved in the Cold War who died on their missions. A lot of people don't think that the Cold War was a shooting war, but in fact it was. I have the names of 300 aircrew members who were shot down by the Soviet Union and the Chinese and North Koreans during the Cold War. So we want to include World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, the Cold War, and all of the names of the POWs and MIAs from the Black Hills on our monument. I don't know if all of you know this, but in 2004, this monument that you see right here disappeared from Haley Park. And I've had discussions with Mayor Allender and many other people. Nobody knows exactly what happened to it, but the fact is it had the names of, I believe, 2,500 Pennington County soldiers who served in World War II, including those who were killed. For some reason, it was taken down, dismantled, and never put back up. So our update to the current monument would replace those names. What we want to have are slabs of granite by conflict. So there'd be a slab for World War I, 2 slabs for World War II, a slab for Korea, Vietnam, a slab for Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. There'd be a total of either 3 large slabs or 6 smaller slabs. So we asked ourselves, what would a war, okay, there's a close-up of what that monument used to look like. It was a 6-sided, about 6 feet high, with bronze engraved names that disappeared. I wish I could tell you what happened to it. I have no idea. But again, our monument would replace those names. Now, we're only putting the names of soldiers that died, not all of the soldiers who served. Our monument would honor all veterans, but especially those who sacrificed their lives for our country. So what would a Veterans Monument look like? We consulted the South Dakota Veterans Affairs booklet that has every single county, every single monument in the state of South Dakota. And you're going to notice some common themes. This is Tripp County. You see flags, you see names on granite, you see precise, very, very well-planned monuments. This is in Tripp County. And you see names of soldiers engraved on granite. This is another one. I believe this is McPherson County. They have 6 life-sized soldiers from bronze representing 6 wars, along in the background with flags and names on granite. Here's another one. I'm not exactly sure. I believe that this is Aurora County. American flag surrounded by service flags with names on walls. Here's one by the river on the east side of South Dakota. Again, flags, names on granite. And here's a close-up in Kimball, South Dakota, population 700. If we were standing back, you would see all the service flags, and then in front of it, you would see the names of the soldiers by branch who died in those wars. So we don't have to think, what should our monument look like? Our monument should include the magnificent honoring of our fallen soldiers from all of these wars, their names engraved in granite, military service flags included, and obvious planning, detail, and very, very precise in how it looks. We want to honor them. So I'm going to see if I can do this. So we're going to zoom in on this picture. Can I get some tech help here? I don't see my. Oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay, so this is the current. I'm going to use a red marker here. This is the current United States flag in the park across the street. This right here is the current existing monument. Civic Center is up here to the top, and Omaha Street's down here to the bottom. So what we are considering that we'd like to do is install 3 5-foot by 8-foot granite walls, one here, and then one on the other side right between those two. We would be able to fit all 635 names from all of those wars on those granite walls. Two of them would face the American flag, the other one would be on the other side, and in the middle right here would be a white tablet, 6 feet tall, that simply explains the purpose of the monument. That would give us, and then here, 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 all the way around would be service flags, 25 foot tall, lower than the American flag, maintained by our association, which means the flags have to be checked and changed probably a couple of times a year. So you'd have 6 service flags, POW flag, state of South Dakota flag, around the American flag, with all the walls of granite facing them. So that's what we're asking the City Council to allow us to do. Clear that. How do we clear it? Thank you. So now I can go to the next slide, right? So this is, again, a close-up. Here on the left is the current monument. You can see the flag. So this garden bed is this here. I took the photograph 2 days ago, 70 feet long, 15 feet wide. There would be sufficient space, we think, to place one granite wall here with some space, another granite wall there with some space, and a third one on this side, so that they're centered, they're facing the flag, and then right in the middle, right about here, to install a granite tablet that explains the purpose of the monument. This is an artist's conception of what that could look like. So imagine that 70-foot garden bed surrounded by beautiful flowers. Obviously, this is in the spring when it's green. And then there would be walls. This one says Vietnam, World War II. There would be World War I, World War II, all the way around, that would list the war and have each soldier's name next to it in alphabetical order. On each granite slab would be a QR code that if you're taking a picture with a smart camera, it would take you to a website that would detail that soldier's military history. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So World War I, we have 145 names. World War II, 261 names. So just those two wars are 400 names. That's why we need the larger 5x8 granite pieces. There's 400 names just from those two conflicts. Korean War and Vietnam War is about another 86 names. Cold War, 17 names. Iraq War, Afghanistan and War on Terror, another 28 names. And then the POW MIAs are 96 names. So all of those names would be engraved in granite. All of those names would be viewable with a link. I'm going to see if I can do it. So if you go to the soldier's name on our website and you click on the link, help me here. Whoop, went back, sorry. Okay, so we're supposed to be able to click on that link and bring it up.
Yeah, the presentation's
Control. Okay, so this is an example. Lieutenant Rattlinger was from Rapid City. If you notice, his death was December 9th, 1944. That's 77 years ago. He was a first lieutenant, commander of a firefighting platoon. A B-26 bomber took off, had engine trouble, turned around and crash landed, exploded. Lieutenant Rattlinger and 30 members of his fire platoon rushed to the airplane, managed to get out 2 of the initial aircrew members that were injured. When they went back to get the other 4, the entire bomb load blew up, killing Lieutenant Rattlinger, all 30 members of his crew, and all 6 members of the B-26. This is just one example of the heroes from the Black Hills that I believe that our city and the Black Hills need to know about. So every single soldier that you see on the granite, you will be able to look up their history. This actually has the names of the air crew, and it actually has the names of all of the firefighting members. Just close it, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Current slide. Right here. All right. We also would like to put a red feather by the names of 55 Native American soldiers from all wars. We have their names, and when you read some of the military histories, you're astounded by the love they had for their country, the love they had for their military branch, and their willingness to die for freedom. So we'd like to put a red feather by each one of their names. Cost estimates. We're estimating, I believe I have Mr. Riley Cassidy from Lifesong Monuments. We're estimating that the granite engravings with names installed in the park would cost in the area of $75,000 to $85,000. The 6 service flags, $15,000 to $20,000, and I got a call yesterday, like everything else, prices are rising, so I would raise all of these costs by about 20%. Surveillance cameras, we like to put surveillance cameras to monitor the site, so if there's any damage, we would be able to go back and look at the video and turn it over to law enforcement. Annual maintenance, which would mean changing the flags. We would like the Black Hills War Monument Association to be in charge of changing the military flags. If needed, we could change the American flag to make sure that they're always in good condition, not torn, and well lit, which they're supposed to be. We'd like all funds raised through donations of citizens of the Black Hills. We actually have a website I'll show on my next slide that they can click online or they can mail a check, but we like it to be through private donations. See if I can do this. Oh, how come it doesn't want to do it for me?
Because it's now hit control.
Want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, so this is our website. It was just within the last 3 days we've gotten it online. It just gives the history that I've just read, tells about our plan. There's the monument, gives information with the picture, tells about us, who we are. Then when you go to Walls of Honor, you'll be able to see by conflict. Click on any one of these and it takes you to the names of the soldiers with links that you can actually click on in order to see their military history. And then finally, the last page, you'll be able to make online donations by clicking here. The Black Hills Area Community Foundation has agreed to be our fiscal sponsor. So when people click on that online donation, they will receive the funds, they will send them their tax receipt, and then they will send the money to us. Or you can send a check to the Black Hills War Monument Association. So Mr. Mayor and City Council, I thank you for our time. And if you have any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Ed. Not seeing any questions from the City Council now, but I think I can tell you we'll be in touch.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Thank you very much. Okay, and now, next on the agenda is general public comment. General public comment is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. A couple speaker requests for general public comment. The first one is Carla Schanzenbach. And all the speakers tonight will have 3 minutes. You can watch these lights up here and see how you're doing for time.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Recently, I was speaking with some of our state representatives around the legalization of marijuana that's happening in our state, and I was surprised to find out that you cannot use marijuana and own a gun at the same time. Having talked to people at the state level, some of the City Council people, people in our community, I realized that that is not something that is very well understood at this point in time. According to ATF Form 4473 warning statement, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law, regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal or recreational purposes in the state where you reside. What if you already have a gun? Your licensed gun isn't legal if you are a marijuana consumer. So one of the things I think it's reasonable to assume is that this is not something that people would necessarily connect in their minds, because if you purchase marijuana legally in your state, I'm not sure you would automatically go to that your gun then becomes illegal. This happens to be part of the process because it is illegal at the federal level, but is legal, marijuana is legal at the state, but it's still considered a class something with heroin at the federal level. So one of the things I would like to try to do is just start a conversation at various levels of the government to be able to see if we can put some sort of placard on the doors of the marijuana facilities, or at least some educational process out there for the public. Because, again, I think people should have the information about what the laws are so that they can make just informed decisions for themselves. Having talked to somebody at the state level about this, I got a little bit of pushback on it saying, you know, when I suggested, do you think it's reasonable to try to educate the public on this issue? And while the answer was yes, the response is, but it will be difficult to do because of the power and money in the marijuana lobbying groups. So hopefully maybe at the city level, this is something we could start at this level, certainly helping people to be aware that this is an issue. Some of the reading I have done is that the federal people don't always come after your gun, but they do sometimes. And I would think that from a perspective of the sheriffs or the police department, this might be something of interest. So just trying to start the conversation and appreciate anything you could do to consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Chuck Henry.
A little bit about that topic. Medical marijuana is fine. You get it by prescription just like any drug you have, but they want recreational marijuana, which is illegal by federal. No matter where it's approved, where it is becomes law for recreational, it's still illegal. If you haven't seen the news lately, in California, they broke into some of these distilleries for that hold marijuana. So that's what can happen to here. Okay, last Monday I had a good conversation with the mayor. Great being good friends. And we talked about homelessness. And there's a lot of things about homelessness that needs to be done with the public. One, the churches need to start getting involved, like they're told that Christ commanded us to do, to help each other out, even the less fortunate. And we have agencies around and organizations that are here to help. The Hope Center, Cornerstone Mission, Salvation Army, CAP, but nobody's contributing to them for money. They need the money to help everybody. So I challenge the public to get involved. The problem is, I hear a lot of people, oh, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get involved. That is very stupid. And to me, I hate to even say it, it's being an idiot. You can contribute to your church. They need to get involved. If they teach the Bible properly, they need to get involved. And what I'm planning to do is get with Lieutenant Doyle and see about riding a few times with the Quality of Life unit so I can get to talk to some of these people that are homelessness, even walk down during the day downtown and just talk to these people and see what exactly their needs are besides alcohol. And I've seen a lot of that. And I used to criticize them. Not no more. I'm here to help them. And I'm going to help the mayor get that done. As situations come up with feeding them down in Memorial Park by the band shell. The problem is, if they don't realize, these groups don't realize it, if once they clean up and leave, people still gather down there. And that's where the litter comes from, that's where damages come from, and the feces that are being found down there. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all for general public comment. Now to non-public hearing items, items 5 through 45. We'll open public comment on items 5 through 34. First up is Chuck Henry on items 16 through 21 and 29.
We're talking about repairing roads. Some of these roads, they tear up to put a new sewer system in it, new water lines and that. Why can't they include that road, improving that road at the same time? I've talked to Richie about this, and I haven't looked at the schedule yet that he gave me the link to, but I think if they need to re-look at these. I'm seeing some of them on the meeting agenda tonight of these side streets that need to be done. So I think this will help out great. Thank you.
Yep. Now, Tanchi Weaver on item 29.
Good evening. I recently read the paper, the news report on the Legal and Finance Committee. I read it a day late last week, otherwise I'd have been there. The report talked about this resolution that you're going to vote on tonight, and it said that the Youth City Council had been given a $30,000 budget to spend, and I nearly spit out my coffee. Council President Lehman at the committee told the committee that $15,000 had been included in the city budget and that the county had agreed to match the funds. He also said that the majority of the money would be used to send 6 kids and 2 adults to the National League of Cities Conference in D.C. in March, an organization that spends millions of dollars every year on advocacy for gun control, leftist infrastructure policies, and housing policies like ending single-family dwellings. I called a commissioner and asked why the county would give $15,000 of taxpayer money to high school kids to spend. He told me that the commission had voted it down. That fact was then later verified, but apparently Sheriff Tome allocated the $15,000 from his budget when the commission refused. So that was really a false statement. To say that the county had agreed to the expenditure, when in fact it appears that the money was given at the sheriff's personal discretion from discretionary funds, which is probably an issue for the county. Reading the resolution, you discover a lot of things. There are a lot of good programs like Girl State and Boy State, in which students learn the basic functions and duties of city government. They learn the nuts and bolts. That's a good thing. It seems, though, from reading this resolution and the webpage on the city's website for the council, for the Youth City Council, that it is really an advocacy group. It also is apparent in this resolution that age is the only real qualifier to be a member of the Youth City Council. Even a school dropout can be a member if they are selected by a selection committee, which is a really sketchy group. There are council members, and it's described in here who the committee is, but it's not, for the most part, it's nondescript. Even, and I can't tell either if these children get school credits for participation or if they get payment for their participation. Although they approve minutes, I can find no published minutes online. You would expect that the Youth City Council would mirror the actual council with legal and finance, public works, planning and zoning committees, etc. Instead, their agenda lists cultural relations, environmental, mental health, economics, and youth philanthropy committees. The youth...
Time.
I have one more sentence. The service projects listed include something called Love Your Body Campaign. I ask you to rewrite this resolution, take the funding out, and restructure the program to focus on learning citizenship and public service. This is sending the wrong message. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that takes us through general public comment and now on to non-public hearing items. 5 through 40, wait, we just did that. Okay, consent items now, 5 through 34. This is a time when the city council may, with one vote if they choose, approve all of the items on consent, or they may choose some for individual consideration. Let's go to Pat Jones.
Sorry, Mayor, nothing to do with that. I was going to ask Jim if he could go over to the podium. There's a light that's turned that's glaring very much up here, bothering my eyes. I was just going to see if he could turn it a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, problem solved. Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull 14 and 19.
Okay, any other? Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 29.
Okay, any other items from council members? If not, could I have a motion then to approve the consent items with the exception of 14, 19, and 29? Motion to approve from Evans, second Lehman. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, approve resolution number 21-100, a resolution to write off uncollectible utility billing accounts for a total amount of $111,258. Go to Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. May I address the Assistant Finance Director, Tracy?
Yes, please.
Tracy, this write-off, can you kind of explain why we're doing that and why that's the best practice?
This came through the Public Works Department, so Mr. Tech might be the better one to answer the questions.
Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mayor. About a year ago, we did a similar thing, and we had debt on our books back to, I think it was about the year 2012. So it's a good financial practice to keep your books updated and to write off that debt annually. As I explained at the committee, this debt is for the calendar year 2018. So any uncollectible debt that we have between 2018 and now, we're still trying to collect. In fact, we never stop trying to collect debt even though we write it off our books. So just a sound financial practice to make sure that our accounting principles are correct and in line with standards for a utility of our size.
Thank you, Dale. I have no other, I yield.
Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to segue off of that. We have this conversation come up with the ambulance department, the utilities department. And I think the last time when we had the ambulance come up, we were asking that if we could establish what is considered a good accounting practice period of time frame, whether it's 180 days. I know credit card people use 180 days in the financial world. When we had our ambulance write-off last time, it went back several years and was big numbers, hard for people to understand. If we could just get some kind of consistency, so as we go forward, I mean, we're 2018, it's obvious it's very uncollectible. Probably anything from 2020 is probably pretty much uncollectible, should be written off, probably not carried on the balance sheet. But I was wondering if at some point, I think trying to clean it up, we might as well just get it all cleaned up at one shot, bring up something consistent so the council can, you know, on a consistent basis, ask for a period of time. They know all these are going to be written off on this certain period of time, and understanding that we do still try to collect them. We get that, but we don't want to carry it on our balance sheet as an asset when it's not even probably realistic. So that would be what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion on item 14, please? Motion approved by Drew. Second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, authorize staff to advertise for bids for St. Cloud reconstruction, 5th Street to Highland Court. Estimated cost $3,400,000. We'll go to Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. May I address Public Works Director Dale Tech?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Dale, this is a pretty sizable project. Could you explain what the project entails and what your process is for your continuous street reconstruction and improvements?
Yeah. Thank you. This project has been on our capital improvement list for a number of years. Finally, within the past 5 years, funding has been allocated to it. Primarily, it's the reconstruction of St. Cloud Street, which is the road that goes up to Star Village from 5th Street side. In addition to that, there are a number of other St. Cloud streets in that vicinity, so it's kind of an addressing nightmare and an intersection nightmare. So it's not just this section of street we'll be working on, but there are 2 other sections along with it that will be reconstructed to provide safer geometrics. Obviously, the geology of that hillside is poor. The condition of that road has been poor for probably decades. So this will provide a wider roadway for safety purposes. It is a bus route. And then also our water and wastewater improvements too. So water and sewer will be done in conjunction with the roadway alignment and reconstruction.
Thank you. I just want to point out that we all are concerned about the condition of our roads, and you may not know it if you don't live right near a construction site, but the city is continuously working on improving the roads, and there's a lot of roads, and we're adding roads all the time, and there's just more roads to keep up with. And I just appreciate what the Public Works Department is doing to try to keep our roads in good repair. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Chair needs a motion on 19. Motion from Pat Jones and a second from Greg Stroman. All in favor of approval of item 19, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to item 29. Approve Resolution 2021-099, a resolution regarding changes to the Rapid City Youth City Council. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled it because when it came through Legal and Finance, the explanation of this was it was to change the term, lengthen the term. So I assumed that that was all that there was to it. I guess I'd want an explanation. Are we doing a whole new resolution? Is the funding already in place for this group? And the trip to the National League of Cities, I think, needs to be understood by the people's parents if they're going to send their kids to an agenda-driven meeting. I mean, people that don't understand it. Years ago, when I sat on this council and the National League of Cities, people joined it. You need to understand that it's a politically driven organization. You'll get different opinions from different people. Most generally, I disagree with a lot of it. There's some things that I can cipher out and get some good things out of it, but when you're an adult, it's a lot easier to decipher those out of that decision process. So, I mean, if a parent wants to send their child to the National League of Cities to learn, that's one thing. I'm not interested myself in sending them there. I don't even send myself to those meetings. So if someone could tonight explain to us this resolution, and if the funding's already in place, that's already been done. And I understand also, just so if the funding, if they're going to spend the money, they got to come to the council to get approval to spend that money. I guess I'm not sure if I go to Lance on this, Mr. Mayor, or?
Let's go to Lance Lehman.
Okay, thank you.
Provide some insight, Mr. Weifenbach. The resolution tonight changes the term limits to 1 year, and it changes the term to June 1st to May 31st, or May 30th, 31st.
So then this resolution's already been in place then?
Correct. We approved it December of 2019 originally. We just made some alterations to that aspect of it. In regards to the budget, that was approved in the mayor's budget proposal that this council approved in
I just
September.
trying to figure out why I missed that part of it. So tonight we're just changing the term to coincide.
That is correct. There's also a provision in there allowing for more council oversight should they want to do a sponsored event.
Okay, so we're
So
adding
the council would
that's-
have to approve, say they want to do another park cleanup.
That's helpful.
The council would have to approve their park cleanup, which is one of the
That's
events they
helpful,
have
and
done.
that's, so I understood it correctly, so this is not something, we're going to have we're adding the council oversight, and we are changing the term to coincide with the school year.
Yes, and also there was staggered 1- and 2-year terms. We're doing away with those and just doing a solid 1-year term for all students.
Everything else has already been in place, and there's,
Correct.
we could, if we want to revisit this, we should go back and revisit it
Certainly, we can
as a
certainly
whole.
redraft the resolution again. That's all we're doing tonight is redrafting a resolution that was already done.
I'm okay with those changes. I just wasn't aware this existed, so, thank you.
Okay, Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct a question to the council president?
Yes, you may.
And Lance, you can pass this along if you're not the right person, but does the council still maintain oversight of the budget? For example, we have events require our approval. Would sending youth to National League of Cities utilizing taxpayer funds also require our approval? Or was the budget like a blanket, y'all spend on whatever you want? Can you
No,
explain
absolutely
that
not. We
process?
wouldn't give a group of youth $15,000 to do as they please. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the mayor's office holds this particular item. So the mayor would be the one to approve all
So the mayor,
spending for it, if
the
I'm
mayor
not
has the
mistaken.
15, mayor has final approval on the,
Well, Lance and I'm not sure whether it's in the city
Okay.
council
The city
budget
council or the
budget.
mayor's office, I can't remember which one it's in.
it's more about approval, because I do share some of the concerns with National League of Cities. While there are some things we might appreciate from them, there are other things I don't. Certainly their gun control efforts, they're very strong on that, not in line with the values of most of Rapid City. I certainly don't want to expose you. And I think there is discernment that's needed when you are participating in these groups. And I think as adults and as elected officials, we can kind of say, hey, this is good, this isn't so great. I do have a little bit of concern about what would be shared in terms of advocacy in that environment. But it would be also good to know what the oversight is. It sounds like we approved the budget earlier this year. Sounds like the mayor might be the one that has oversight on
It's either the mayor or the council,
approval.
Mr. Solomon. I apologize, I don't
No,
remember.
I'm sure it's in our bylaws or our policy as well, but I would ask then if it is the mayor, that the mayor would use discernment on these things about the kinds of things. I thought a lot of those funds would go to community-sponsored events. You talked about cleanup and those sort of things. I thought that's where a lot of our stuff would actually remain more locally based than anything else. So I think we're just all getting some clarity on this issue, and appreciate you taking the time to answer the questions.
Of course.
I yield.
One other thing, Mr. Solomon, the Youth City Council members, there are certain members here who are also available for questions. They showed up tonight to support their organization.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak to one of the Youth City Council. Do you have a person that represents your group? Please come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
This on? Okay. I'm Sadie Colbeck. I'm the chairperson for the Rapid City City Council. In case you have.
Her mic isn't on.
Yep, closer to the mic. Okay, I'm Sadie Colbeck. I'm the chairperson for the Rapid City City Council.
There seem to be some questions brought forth. How do you select your members? I know that the group has grown, which I think is awesome, but we need to have some clarification on how we get the people that are the young people that serve on this.
Okay, so when it comes to an application, it's online, and we have a group of community members that go through their application, so it gives off different volunteer work. So we are not paid, and this is all volunteer work, so we go through what school you are. We try and make sure that we go through as many schools as possible, so Douglas, Stevens, Central, middle schools, or we've had one middle school. So homeschooled, we try and make sure that it's a variety of people, so then we have as many viewpoints on the council as possible, and then it's gone through by the selection committee.
And as far as your work as you define it, that was defined from the City Youth Council itself to decide what they thought as priorities.
Yes. So we decided that we wanted to have committees that are based on what the youth what youth would be like most needing. So mental health, economics, cultural relations, and environmental.
I believe that you are I don't know, well-versed in what's important to you, and that we don't have to have you in line with everything we do. Do you have council members that usually attend your meetings and make sure everything's going well?
Lance and Laura mostly come.
Lance and Laura usually come. And so when we're talking about the League of Cities, I would guess that no parent or child is going to be forced to go to the League of Cities.
No, so we had a poll kind of go out, an application to go, and then some of our adult mentors went through the application because we could only take 6 students, I believe, to go to the National League of Cities. So we decided to go through the adult mentors.
I believe that that's a good place to see where people can grow, where people can learn. I don't detect, as I have seen, any kind of a type of left-wing leaning in the meetings I've attended. So how many kids are going to go? That's 6?
I believe it's 6. Yep, 6. And then 2 adults.
I just don't have a problem with that, because I think when you can get out of this group, out of Rapid City, and see some of the wide world on how decisions are made, how policy is how affected, how people go ahead and make decisions on that, from some of the lower committees to the highest group of their executives, I just really don't have a problem with that. And parents will be very well versed. I would think if their child's going to be going to this, they would know what they're doing. Have you sent them any kind of a notice so they could go online and look it up, or what?
It was up to the student to tell their parent, and then once they were picked, the parent was told about.
And is there a selection process for that, or if you can go, you just get to go?
It was an application, like I said, and then our adult mentors chose those 6 students, and then they will be going, and it's up to the parent if they want to go as well.
Well, every time I've been to your meetings, I've been very impressed, and I have gone to them. So thank you for your comments on that, and I'll yield.
Okay, just a reminder to the council, what we're approving tonight is a resolution to change the terms and a couple other minor details. Yeah, let's try to stick to that argument if we can. Richie Nordstrom. Never mind.
You got me. Because I'm a thorough advocate of the also the South Dakota Municipal League of attending, and then also taking interest in the Black Hills Council of Local Governments. I see our executive director in the audience, that's why I mentioned that. So just some other opportunities that's available. So, but during your 1-year terms, can you share with us some of your projects that you've completed already? And by the way,
Mr. Mayor, can I call a point of order here that we're moving away from what I think when I asked my questions, I solidified what we were voting on. A change to the resolution.
Okay, we're voting on it. Mr. Nordstrom's on talking about the 1-year terms right now.
Yep, thank you. Can you share with us on your limited time that you have on the Youth City Council, the projects that you've been undertaking and what you anticipate doing over this next year?
Yeah, so as of right now, we have split 1-year and 2-year terms, and it's been getting kind of tricky with people that need to leave the council, so then they have adjusted terms. Through the 1 year, we can have a better idea of who's serving at what time, and also everyone will have to reapply after that 1 year, and then that means that they can just focus on what they want to get done in that 1 year, especially with some of our committees. That helps the most with other than 2 years, where you're in the council for 2 years at a time, and then you have to reapply and most likely you get another 2 year.
So did I hear it correctly that you are not limited, or you don't have term limits? So you
As
can
of
go.
right now, yes, we have so right now I have a 2-year term, so my term will end in December 2022 as of right now. And then if we go to the 1 year, it'll only be 1 year and everyone will be done after December 2022 if we change it right now. And then they will all have to reapply at their discretion.
Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to share a lot of that information. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the indulgence of some of my comments, and I hope to have a report from the Municipal League in a couple of weeks at a future council meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief. I don't think we should ever underestimate high school students and their ability to go and to learn and to grow. I spent 33 years as an educator, teacher, principal, and superintendent, traveled with a lot of high school kids to various places, and simply because they show up at a place, a convention, a conference, of whatever, they will not just be mesmerized and transformed into what that organization is propelling. The ability for high school kids to go to things and learn and grow from them is absolutely amazing, and I agree with Councilwoman Drew. Anytime we can expand and send people to things, they come back better, and we all grow from it. So never, ever underestimate the high school students' ability to learn and grow and make a difference. They've been impressing me for many, many years, and I know they will continue to do so. Thank you.
Okay, let's remember we're talking about the resolution here. Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify two things that came up in the discussion earlier, and that was budgeting. It says that, in the resolution, it says that once the have a proposal to spend money is approved by 2/3 of the voting members of the Youth City Council, it must be approved by the mayor. And then as far as community events that they're involved in, that has to get a recommendation from the city attorney's office and then approval by the common council. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Solomon.
Well, let's take a stab at a motion here to approve with this change, that under the budget items in the resolution that Councilman Stroman just quoted, a proposal to spend money will not pass unless approved by 2/3 of the voting members of the Youth City Council. A proposal approved by the Youth City Council must also be approved by, and it says the mayor, I would suggest by a majority of the City Council instead. That way we have good oversight on that, a broad spectrum of opinions. I would make that change from the mayor to the majority of the City Council.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve with the primary change being the approval of expenditures coming from the Common Council rather than the Mayor's office. We have a second by John Roberts. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we need to go to a roll call because we have one of our members on teleconference tonight, and in order to follow the rules, we have to do a roll call when it's not a unanimous vote. So we'll do that now.
Jones.
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Solomon. Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Weifenbach. Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-1.
Okay, thank you, and that takes us through our consent items. Now on to non-consent items, 35 through 45. We'll open public comment on those items. We have a couple of speaker requests. First, on item 36, Don McGill.
Hello to the City Council. Sir. Hello to the City Council. My name is Don McGill. I've been a longtime resident of South Dakota. Moved here in 1969 and grew up here. However, moved into Rapid City in 1974, and it was a different time back then. But I'm voting on 6515 to not pass this, to be rezoned as commercial, because we live in a residential neighborhood where we have businesses all around us. The street is terribly busy all of the time. There's a lot of accidents around there. There are a lot of homeless people coming to and fro, a lot of drug activity, and they like to hide behind that particular property. So if there was a building there, that would be another place for them to do their business. And it has destroyed the peace and quiet in our neighborhood. It's just destroyed our properties with garbage and litter and alcohol bottles and such, defecation anywhere in that area. There's a dead end there. It's being used as a parking lot by the Community Health Center. It's not a parking lot, but it's there. And also, there's a ditch that runs completely through there that doesn't really go out anywhere. It just gets water, and it's full of garbage, debris, needles, anything you could think of. And it is right at smack dab in the middle of the property. So where is the parking going to come from? I can see it now. They'll be parked in front of our driveway, our mailbox, and all the way up and down the street. We can't seem to get a speed limit sign on that street. However, I have contacted the sheriff's office, spoke to them, said that they would look into it. That was 6-7 years ago. Everyone on the other end of Philadelphia and Spruce has a stop sign, has a speed limit sign. We, however, don't, so they consider that the speed zone, and it's becoming a crime area, a primary crime area. And when we moved there in 1974, you could have rolled up the sidewalks, and you didn't have to lock anything. But now things have changed, and this is only going to increase the problems in our neighborhood. My mother's 90 years old, and she doesn't need to be stressed or harassed by strangers coming to and fro around our neighborhood all day and all night long. And also, I've heard gunshot fire in that area, which has been very prevalent in the last few months. So just to say that, it's a little unnerving. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have another speaker on the same item. Kirsten Mitzel? Nope.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Yes, it is Kirsten Mitzel. I'm coming to you on Ordinance 6515 because I also believe that this would be a disservice to our community. My grandmother has lived there since 1974, as my mom had stated. I, of course, visit frequently, and my mom does still live in that neighborhood as well. I watched as E.B. Berquist went downhill and was demolished, and that was replaced with the Community Health Center, which serves the community. I believe that using this vacant lot that actually had a fire was related to crime. The gentleman that owned the property was arrested for drugs and was sentenced to prison, and so the property was vacant, so it was occupied by homeless persons, and so there was quite a lot of illegal activity. Almost any time I would go over to my grandmother's home, I would ensure that I would go during the daytime because it's not somewhere safe for someone to be out in the evening, male or female. I am resourceful, but I also do not like trouble. And so it's just concerning to me that we would add a business that does not bring value to this neighborhood. A recreational repair shop is a great idea in a business district. It is not a good idea in a residential neighborhood. That lot should be completely stripped. There is a fence currently that allows people to essentially hide behind it, so when officers are called, they have to wait for multiple patrol units to arrive in order for them to proceed onto the property because it is dangerous. There's many places for homeless persons to hide. There are some bushes back behind as well where they sleep and currently are residing. The dead end on the end as well is somewhere where I've currently witnessed drug deals happening. Vehicles parked down there and wait out of sight and out of mind, pardon me, in order to do their nefarious business. I think that we should definitely work on our community relations and address the homeless population in that area. I don't have all the answers, but I'm certainly willing to help do the work. I don't believe that we should have a business in the middle of this residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more speaker request on item 43 from Chuck Henry. And this is the Community Development Block Grant item.
Yeah, I forgot number 29. There's a lot of committees that the mayor picks people for, but we don't hear anything from their committees, like the Mayor's Committee on Disabilities, all those. I never heard anything what they do. Same thing with the Youth Council. Okay, the block grant. I know Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment has, well, it doesn't have a amount down for it, but they say they got $2 million in extra in their savings in their bank account. Right now, I live in one of those housings. We have at least one door that can be yanked from the outside open, from the outside, to let people that don't belong in the building get in. And I think funds need to be expended to make sure that doesn't happen. We'll have the people walking in after somebody comes in from smoking cigarettes or whatever. Because, well, right now, I can't do a thing about that. I used to confront them about it. Then I got accused of harassment. And on their website, if you pull it up, underneath their name, it says this: providing safe and sanitary housing. Safe housing for everybody? That's not good. I used to live over at River Ridge. We had a guy, I don't know what happened to it. We had somebody on drugs kicked in somebody's door there. Got in the building, kicked in somebody's door. Then one time, we had something happened to one of the apartments. And a friend of mine was the battalion chief at the time, so I went up with him. And just the entryway of that apartment, there's blood all over. Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us through the public comment period for these items. We'll start under ordinances with item number 35. First reading, ordinance 6503, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Watershed 2 LLC for a rezoning request from no-use district to low-density residential district 2 for property generally described as being located north of the terminus of Cloud Peak Drive. Committee recommendation is to approve. Motion to approve by Drew and a second by Weifenbach. All in favor of that approval motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 36, first reading of ordinance 6515, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Lester Miles for a rezoning request from medium-density residential district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located at 420 Spruce Street. And the committee recommendation is to approve in conjunction with a planned development designation. We'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of the public comments that we received, may I direct a question to our planning director?
Please do.
Community Development Director Extraordinaire, right? Is that part of the job title?
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. So they raise up some questions. I think maybe the most compelling one is the fact that this is a residential neighborhood and that perhaps this commercial enterprise is not a good fit in the neighborhood. Can you address their concerns for the council's consideration?
Mr. Mayor? So looking at this, there is a division between the actual zoning of commercial and residential. Spruce Street separates the residential zoning to the west, and the balance of this block, with the exception of this 0.29 acres, is already zoned general commercial. At the time that this area was rezoned, that particular southern lot was left as MDR instead of general commercial because there was an existing home. That home is no longer there. The development to the north and to the east of this site is commercial. When Planning Commission looked at this, they determined that it would be better off to square up this lot, make it completely commercial, but they're very sensitive to the fact that there is limited access and there is a residential development directly to the west. And so they only did it in conjunction with the planned development designation, which means that if someone comes forward with an RV repair business or any other use that would be allowed in general commercial, that they would have to bring forward a full set of plans that would show such things as parking, screening, landscaping, signage, lighting, and security, and that would come before the Planning Commission. It could then be appealed to council for final decision. A part of that decision also lend itself due to the fact that when we have vacant land, it does leave an area open for vandalism. And when we promote development on it, it brings activity to a neighborhood, and that in and of itself helps the police department with controlling some of the unpleasant activities on those dead-end quiet streets.
So there's still opportunity that for whatever goes on this spot after it's zoned still has consideration for the neighborhood.
Absolutely, and we encourage their participation when those plans do come forward.
Okay, all right. Looks like there's other folks in the queue. I'll yield.
Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things in looking at the documents in support of this, one of the things that has to be met is, I'm going to quote from number 2, it says, does not inflict adverse effects to the adjacent residential neighborhood. And I know that our office for planning and zoning and all of those that are involved in this, when they work on these projects and try to vet them, that they take a very deep dive into what the business is going to be, the impact it might have, et cetera. And I agree very much with Development Officer Fisher that in neighborhoods that are run down and there are problems, development can help push that element out rather than allow that element to stay there. So it's very possible that this business coming in can make a positive difference in that. Ladies, your concerns and your comments are very valid, and they hit me right in that area of does not inflict adverse effects to the adjacent residential neighborhood. And I'm sure, Mayor, if I may address the new development director?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. So Vicki, I know you folks look closely at those elements. What kind of, and you started to talk on it, but I'd like to give you a little more time to assure these folks that if this does in fact come in, what have you seen happen in other elements of town where there's been vacant adjacent areas that have been potential crime spots, and how development has impacted that in a positive way for the neighborhood?
Mr. Mayor, so we find it normally in these areas where they've gone for a period of time without any new development, it becomes somewhat stagnant. And when we see these proposals come forward on existing property, this encourages infill development, something that we really do try to bring forward in our community, since the utilities are there, the streets are there. And with that activity then, we see that that customer base does bring about that watchful eye so that those that may be doing things in the neighborhood that shouldn't be there now don't have that dead-end street to sit on. I think what is very important is that when we see these plans come forward as a part of a planned development, we will be looking to ensure that this site has sufficient parking, that this site doesn't have any outdoor storage of vehicles that would be unsightly for a residential area to look at across the street. We'll be looking to see where the access is so that any activity on that adjacent street doesn't cause safety concerns for those that live in the neighborhood that also have to back into this street. And we won't look at those until those final set of plans come in, but they will have an opportunity to review those plans and make comment to them as well.
So if this is approved tonight, we don't just walk away and let the project happen. It's monitored, and those exact things are addressed. Now, you said the P word, and that's parking. We have situation going on in town right now where the location that a business is in is negatively impacting a residential area especially because of parking. And so we want to be very much aware of that. This business, it's an RV repair, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so are they going to have to, any RV that comes for repair, are they going to have to store it on their lot, not on the street? Customers will have to park in their lot, not on the street, et cetera. Correct?
Correct.
It's vital that the integrity of the neighborhood and the parking and of the neighborhood be respected and not ignored, and just, what am I trying to say, not ignored just so the business can be there. We have to respect both sides and help them work together, and I firmly believe that that's why when we do and you vet these projects, that happens. But we need to assure the people in the neighborhood, like these two ladies here, that we're going to keep an eye on the process as it goes and not just turn them loose to do what they're going to do. I personally have a lot of faith in what our office does when these projects come forward, and I will count on the fact that they will monitor those things. If they don't, I encourage you to hold us accountable and come forward and let us know, because that's how the process is supposed to work. Your comments are very much listened to tonight, and they will keep them in mind, and they will do everything they can to make this project work for both. So, Vicki, thank you, and thank you, ladies. Thank you, Mayor.
Darla Drew.
Mayor, may I ask a question to the second speaker? I don't remember her name.
Yes, if she would like to address it, yes.
Could you state your name again, please, so I know?
Kirsten Mitzel.
Okay, Kristen. Was there any notice, meeting, or anything like that to the neighborhood? How did you find out about this project?
Well, personally, I found out about it. Is the microphone on?
I don't know.
I mean, I can just speak really loud.
No, we want this to be recorded, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I found out about it personally through the agenda. My grandmother did receive a notice in the mail, a letter, and the gentleman that intends to put his business in that space did come over and visit with her. He seems like a perfectly fine gentleman. He has some dogs that she thoroughly enjoyed getting to know. I just don't think it's right for the neighborhood.
Do you get the drift here that this will probably go through? And we would probably want to keep in touch with you. Do you want to form some kind of a neighborhood group, you and your friend and your grandmother and maybe some people, so that you could get together and really know a little bit about this project? Do you understand that we think it might help the homeless situation or the crime situation to maybe dissipate a little bit if we have some light and some business going on there?
Well, I certainly can understand that. Currently, just something to note, there are no businesses directly on Spruce. There is a secondhand furniture store on the end. I believe that's Cherry. You have businesses on the backside there that go around back where Kmart used to be. And then you have the Community Health Center. But there's currently nothing actually on that section of Spruce. And it's a very small plot that they are intending to put this on. So that's where our concern is.
I see.
It's not that we don't like the businesses in the area and that they are helpful, but I'm also concerned too, just knowing the recreational RV business. It takes space, quite a lot of it actually. My husband worked for a company and they had a couple of acres to store campers and materials and such. So that's just where our concern is, and we were hoping for something that may more benefit the community, like possibly a market or something like that, that would make more sense.
Wow. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments, and I yield.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve this, and then I'd like to hold the floor to talk to Vicki if I get a second.
Second by Lehman. Go ahead.
Vicki, I'd like you to explain real quickly if you can. So the way that this is being zoned through, it's being approved in conjunction with a planned development designation. If this business doesn't come forward, what happens in the future?
In order for, if this gets approved tonight and then confirmed at second reading, for anyone to pull a building permit for any use will require that a final plan development be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission, meaning that a sign will need to be posted on the property and everyone within 250 feet of the property will be noticed by mail, the same group that got the first notice. And regardless of the use, this is a commercial site. I appreciate the comments made tonight. I too would have concern if they were proposing to only use Spruce as access, where it would probably require that they back out into the right-of-way to get those RVs off the site once they were repaired. Backing into the right-of-way is not allowed from a commercial property. You have to enter the right-of-way in a forward motion. So looking at this, I don't anticipate that they'll be able to get two access points without circulating through the site, entering on Philadelphia and/or Spruce, exiting the other. So I think we'll see other improvements beyond just what's there today in order to ensure that it's meeting all the access requirements for general commercial.
Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate that. And the owners, this gives you the right during every single one of these meetings to come forward, bring your issues forward. If you believe that there's, something negative that there's going to be there, you still have your voice in that say at that time. So, the zoning part of this is just the first step. There's no guarantee that whoever's going to do this business there, it's going to even happen or it's going to even work. So one of the reasons that I'm voting for this is because I believe what Vicki said with the city, and that we need to make our zoning, be appropriate for the area when you have general commercial everywhere else but this one little lot. I believe that's what it should be. Also, because this is an MDR lot, if you're worried about traffic, 0.9 acre, Vicki, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could pretty easily build a fourplex on there, and there'd be way more traffic with that fourplex than there's going to be with this business that they're proposing right now. So, you know, MDR, yeah. 0.29 of an acre. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, a little over a quarter-acre lot. So, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to have Vicki explain what happens with this lot going into the future, that it's always going to be under that planned unit or planned designations. So no matter what happens, whether this business is built, that somebody else comes in, proposes something different, you always have the right and the ability to come to every one of those meetings and express your concerns. So, thank you.
Clarification for the motion maker and seconder. The committee recommendation was to approve in conjunction with the plan development designation. Was that consistent with your motion? Okay, everyone says yes. All right, Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions for Director Fisher, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Vicki, is there anything else within that planned development designation that you'd like to bring forward?
I think that the design standards set forth for any commercial property, whether it be the location of signage, entrance to the site, minimum parking, minimum landscaping, fencing where needed, et cetera, will all be addressed as a part of that plan development.
Thank you. And then you are also in charge of the code enforcement division within your department as well. So the owners that are neighbors to this location, please contact Director Fisher and go through the code enforcement if there you see something that's amiss, that's not in compliance with this. And then obviously if you're seeing a criminal element in there, that obviously please contact the police department on that as well. For me, this is a good infill, and so that's the primary reason I'm supporting it, because I think it looks promising and brings in another business that will help the community and the people that are interested in vehicle repair. Thank you, Mayor. Yield.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I guess I'll direct my question to the new director.
Seems to be Vicki Fisher night
Vicki
tonight.
Fisher.
So.
And my question, Vicki, and I got to tell you, I understand we're trying to find the best solution that makes sense. I don't know that anybody's going to build a house on that corner, or they could build an apartment complex, which would not be as good either. But it's a 0.29 acre. They're looking to build an RV park on this thing, or a RV repair shop, or is that some
repair shop?
An RV repair shop. An RV is basically probably 30 feet long. This lot's maybe, what, 100 by 75?
1, 2, 3. It's at least 100 feet wide,
Okay.
probably 150 feet long.
Okay, it's a 0.29 then, okay. All right, so the planned unit development, having been through this on several occasions and going back and forth, is probably the best option for this lot that I could see, because it does give the people in the neighborhood an opportunity to raise their concerns about whatever project was happening there. I guess I would support this, and that would be the reasoning. And I know it'd be best to have the lot empty probably, but that's not going to happen. So, and it's probably not as profitable for somebody after they rip the house down to build another house. So I'm going to support this and understand that the planned unit development, and earlier when we announced that we had given Vicki the director's position, I queued in too late on the queue, and I wanted to say that she's been an honest opportunity for our city. It's been very good to work with her and very good to work with both sides of the people, either the person building or the person that is appealing, and you'll find that she'll be very fair and try to work through this process for you folks, understanding that we don't live there, so it's easy for us just to make decisions. We get that. We're trying to make the best decision we can. Looking at the circumstance, looking at the pictures, I think we're getting to that point, so I'll be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Vicki one more question, please.
Okay.
I'm confused about the sequence here. If we approve it in conjunction with the plan development designation, what do we actually accomplish? Does that mean nothing changes until we have that plan in front of us, so the zoning remains as it is until we review the plan?
Not exactly. So if you approve it, it changes to general commercial. However, a building permit cannot be issued, and it could be that the site won't lay out for an RV repair. I have not seen that site plan to see whether or not that would work. But any use that would be allowed on that site would have to go through the final plan development review and approval by the Planning Commission. Anyone from the neighborhood or anyone in general could appeal it within 7 days of Planning Commission's action, and then it would come before the City Council. Any use that would otherwise be allowed in general commercial would be a potential use at this site, but there will be a public hearing before a building permit will be issued for whatever that use might be.
Well, that does answer my question, but again, I don't understand the sequence. I would think that both would be handed to us at the same time. So that's my only concern with this. It just seems a little out of sequence for me and unnecessary to prove it now, because I know the feeling among some people is that, well, we won't do anything to it if it doesn't suit the people, but then all of a sudden some of these covenants seem to get forgotten for the future, and that's my only concern about that. So I would rather approve the zoning if we actually had that plan in front of us. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve in conjunction with the plan development designation. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Me.
Roll call, please.
Sorry.
Roberts. Stroman. Jones.
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Weifenbach.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-1.
Okay, thank you. Item 37 under community development items. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Watershed Development LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 53 of Block 1, lots 1 through 66 of Block 2, lots 1 through 27 of Block 3, lots 1 through 9 of, and common lot of Block 4, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3, 4A, 4B, 5A, 5B, 6A, 6B, 7 through 15 of Block 5. Who writes this stuff? Lots 1 through 4 of Block 6 of High Point Ranch North, generally described as being located north of the current terminus of Cloud Peak Drive, and the committee recommendation is to approve with stipulations. A motion by Roberts and second by Lehman to approve with stipulations. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 38, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Red Rock Apartments LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 12 of Block 2 of Red Rock Shadows subdivision, generally described as being located southwest of the intersection of Muirfield Drive and Portrush Road. Committee recommendation is to approve. Motion to approve by Roberts, second by Lehman. We'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct a question to our Director Fisher, please?
Yes.
I think this is a good place to start. Ms. Fisher, so one of the things I hear from my constituents in this neighborhood is obviously with the apartment complex going there, traffic concerns. What does this do in terms of any additional traffic impact in that area, and maybe what solutions do we have in place?
So this actually did trigger a traffic impact study to be submitted to address all of these lots that are being proposed. And as a part of that, it did identify some improvements that will be needed for turning lane purposes down at Sheridan Lake Road and Dunsmore Road. But for the most part, it did show that the street sections as existing will accommodate that traffic, even with the 149-unit apartment that's coming forward on Dunsmore, with those additional lanes and extending some of the length of lanes to accommodate the turning movements in and out of the subdivision. At some phase, remember, this is a phased development. At some point in the development, it will require that the city monitor and potentially remove parking along one part of Dunsmore Road, if it should come forward with that development to the north on High Point Ranch North that you previously just acted on.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the traffic impact study does show that the streets that are there with minor improvements on Sheridan Lake Road will address the apartment development as well as High Point Ranch North and the existing residential development that currently uses Muirfield and Dunsmore for ingress and egress.
And I'm aware with Dunsmore, on this section of Dunsmore, it is wider than the other section from what I believe with the off-street parking and all that going down to High Point. Is that correct? Like it could accommodate a turn lane if it needed to and those sort of things?
Correct. And the unique history behind that is Dunsmore at one point was supposed to be the collector all the way to the north.
Yeah.
And there was a developer, an adjacent developer that did not want that with the concern that it would require the same improvement when he went to develop, and it got relocated to Cog Hill Lane. Well, that is not the direct route. People that live in the area use Dunsmore. So we have a local street functioning as a collector street, and our solution is eventually potentially taking parking off one side.
Another solution will be to get another access out the other direction, perhaps going out towards, you know, Cleghorn Canyon or Chapel Valley, Carriage Hill, somewhere along that route. I know that's a big part of this discussion as well, but I know it's a big issue out there. You still live in that neighborhood. I'm very well aware of the concerns. I want to make sure that folks, their concerns are being heard as we approve all of these developments out there. So otherwise, good plans, just so long as we keep the traffic in mind. Thank you.
Roman.
Mayor, may I also address the question to former interim director, now Director Vicki?
Yes, please.
Vicki, as far as the expanse of this traffic study, you talk about some turning lanes. Was any consideration given to Sheridan Lake Road north into town there? And I mean, that road is just packed every morning during school, and it's, if you have another 149 units out there, are people going to be able to get into town?
So the plat that's on the agenda today is not for 149 units for the apartment development. That's just a building permit. That has already been issued. It is under construction. What they're trying to do now is just plat it into one lot for the purposes of transferring ownership of it, I'm sure, as they're securing and finalizing that building permit. In relationship to the question about the traffic impact study, the traffic engineer worked with our traffic engineer in addition to the county highway department, and looking at considerable length of distance along Sheridan Lake Road to ensure that turning movements not only right at Dunsmore and Muirfield, but further on closer to town, how they would be impacted by this additional traffic. When we took this item to Planning Commission, the engineering division identified that there is a CIP project that will be improving Sheridan Lake Road from Catron Boulevard to Corral Drive, and that's anticipated in 2024. So again, we're just little by little, we're seeing improvements. Part of it's in the county, part of it's in the city, but we try very hard to work together to address whatever is needed as we see additional density occurring. In this case, there's a development that is kind of leapfrogged out to some extent because of the creation of Red Rock Estates, the extension of city water and sewer. Now we see additional development taking advantage of those utilities, and it's putting access onto a substandard road. And the county and the city are diligently working with the developers to get improvements as needed to address the traffic that's being generated with each proposal.
Thank you for that explanation. I'm, like my ward mate, I'm concerned about the traffic on Sheridan Lake Road because we do hear about that from time to time and experience it. So Thank you. I yield.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can appreciate the traffic issues they have out there. And this, I have a question for our director and for Vicki.
Yes.
So the question would be, is this land zoned? Was it in the future plan as zoned for MDR or neighborhood commercial or whatever suitable for what they're doing?
It was zoned office commercial. There was a master plan submitted with the original developer some years back that showed that this would probably be an office complex. That later got changed to multifamily as the market changed in that area. Okay. And so we anticipated that it would be an apartment development. We never thought that it would be just one building, because as all of you know, if they were to do more than one principal structure, more than one apartment building, it would have been a planned development, the neighborhood would have been noticed, we'd be sitting here before you. Right. They did it as one building so that they could pull a building permit, and it didn't trigger any public hearing.
Right. I think that's important for everybody to understand, that I know I've talked to some of the people that are involved here, and they also have good connections up there with the landowners, with Mr. Borgmeyer, Mr. Ham, some of these people that are key to the future of what's going to happen on the west side of town. I know we got traffic issues and that stuff, and we need to start looking at that now. If there's an opportunity for the city to mend some of those fences that we have broken with these guys now to get the other exit, because it's not going to happen if these landowners don't want it to happen. I mean, it's going to be, you've seen where we've been with it. If we work together and we come up with maybe some funding to provide these monstrous streets that are going to have to happen to alleviate Sheridan Lake Road's problem. I know we've looked at, thinking ahead, looking at buying that bank property to help that corner down there on Catron and Sheridan, and I'm assuming that's going to come into play with the Catron all the way down to Corral Drive. But through there's an opportunity, if we mend this fence and we work with the right people here, that we can somehow get that another exit coming off of Red Rock and through Carriage Hills, whatever it takes there. These guys are willing to do it. Obviously, we're going to have to give a little bit because that's the way they feel right now. So I appreciate the fact that we've gone through the process. We've looked at this in the planning, and that's what's so important by having the right person in our planning department that can say, hey, listen, we're looking at 5, 10, 15 years down the road. This is what we foresee. And the traffic studies and all that stuff taken into account and those types of things. But we're going to really have to look at that area right now, because it's coming faster than you know we want it to happen. But we need to be prepared because it's going to happen. I know that there's been conversations with these landowners. They're willing to move if we're willing to give in a little bit and help create that infrastructure, the roads, which almost make these projects unsurmountable. So I appreciate it, and that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 38. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 39, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Susan Murray for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots A and B of Murray subdivision, generally described as being located at 6600 Bighorn Road. Committee recommends approval with stipulations. Pat Jones makes the motion to approve with stipulations. Darla Drew with a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 40, a request by Renner Associates LLC for Mike Holmberg for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1A and 1B of Lovell subdivision, generally described as located at 23359 Bradsky Road. And again, the committee recommends approval with stipulations. Motion by Lehman. Second by Roberts to approve with stipulations. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 41, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Black Hills Capital LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lot 27 of Block 2, lots 12 through 37 of Block 4, lots 1 through 4 of Block 8, lots 1 through 7 of Block 9 of Diamond Ridge subdivision, generally described as being located east of the intersection of Valley Drive and Homestead Street. Committee recommends approving with stipulations. Jason Solomon makes that motion, and a second by Greg Stroman. All in favor of that motion for item 41, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 42, a request by FMG Engineering for Skull Construction Service for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 10 of Block 2 of Black Hills Center subdivision, generally described as being located northeast of the intersection of Black Hills Boulevard and Catron Boulevard. And Evans makes a motion to approve the stipulations, and Roberts makes the second. All in favor of that motion for item 42, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 43, approve preliminary community development block grant for fiscal year 2022 funding. And we'll open it up for debate. Darla Drew.
Thank you. Ms. Schulke, if you'd like to go to the podium, please. Thank you for sticking around for this entire meeting just to answer a couple questions. You know, I know it's on me, but I haven't really seen any differences in all the approvals and all the development block grant funding that's happened over the years. It's always seems to be the same people that get this money. Is that just because they know, or just because the committee that meets on this just says, okay, they seem like the best choice, let's give them money?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I appreciate the comments. There is some truth to that, in that some of the local nonprofits here that receive CDBG funding really have become well-versed in the regulations that are required by receiving this money. However, I would also like to note that Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment Commission applied for the first time in quite some time, if not first time ever,
okay.
As well as Common Bond Communities. As we know, they are from out of town. It was obviously the first time they applied as well. So any organization that's able to have the capacity to carry out a program with the CDBG regulations addressing community needs, always encouraged to apply.
It just seems that the people that know the most are always first in line, and some of the people that are organizations that could be helped with this just don't know the process. And I don't know how we repair that, but I would just like to, and I know I've asked you this before, and you've probably invited me to meetings that I haven't made it to, but I would just like to somehow open this up to a few more organizations that maybe just need, you know, $5,000 or $10,000 of this type of money to really do the work that they're doing. So I'm not saying I know how that gets done, but that's something that I would like to see in the future. And I think that, yes, your point is well taken, that these are some new groups that have come forward this year. And so I appreciate that. But once again, just hoping that some people that aren't well-versed in this process can get in line somehow. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct your question to Ms. Schulke?
Yes, please.
I think it's simple. Obviously, that we have some deferred action on here, so just for clarity's sake, does that mean we're going to hear about this later, or is it just passing this time around? Will you clarify what exactly that might mean for us?
I appreciate that. Yes, that's correct. The item is requesting approval for funding for BMS and WAVY and admin and planning, and that's it. I do expect there to be a recommendation from the committee come January on the funding related to Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment Commission and Common Bond Communities. So
okay.
I do expect to bring that recommendation before you in January.
And that'll be a separate request from this one?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions for Ms. Schulke, please?
Yes.
Michelle, I'm just kind of looking at the, let's see, I'm looking at the title of this, the allocations for the 22 CBDG. The nonprofits that are applying are behavior management, WAVY, and looks like Pennington County Housing is unknown at this time. Could you help me understand a little bit about the unknown part of this?
Of
For
course.
Pennington County Housing?
Of course, the unknown is the dollar amount, not the projects. We understand that
okay.
the project would be serving 70 households on land they already own up by Vicki Powers Park. However, the application did not indicate the actual amount of funding they were requesting, and we didn't receive a direct answer on that. It's a large-scale project in preliminary planning, so we just simply stated that we don't have that information to present to you tonight.
Thank you. And then to address some of the other concerns that were brought up tonight about the other organizations that haven't applied, you do send out what I know as an RFP, but or request for information or something along that line. Am I correct?
That's correct. We did initiate an LOI, so letter of interest
Yes,
process
LOI.
ahead of the application process. That was new this year. And so that was a good opportunity for us to see those letters of interest and communicate with those potential applicants about what their project might be, how it might serve the community, as well as talk to them about what it means to accept CDBG funds.
Thank you. And then, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, just FYI, I'm anticipating that we'll be getting a report from the Community Development Block Grant Group, and I see we've got a couple of members that are on the board, the advisory board for this group. Hopefully, we'll have a presentation about January 12th for the Legal and Finance. That's our goal.
That's our goal. That would certainly be welcomed, and we will have members of the Community Investment Committee available should anyone have additional questions on the processes. But absolutely, we do have two members, Liz Hamburg and Alan Solano, here today if anyone has any additional questions tonight.
And I think it's notable to recognize these folks that are taking that time from their busy schedules to help you out on that vetting process that that your department has to go through to answer all the check boxes that has to be done for the variety of requests that are made. So it isn't just you that's making the decisions, it's other people as well that's involved in this process.
That's correct. The Community Investment Committee presents recommendations. I present on behalf of them. I am not a voting member on that committee.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully the council will make an approval to support this motion.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not commenting on everything tonight to hear myself talk, but I had a question for Ms. Schulke. And
Please.
my question would be is the letter of interest that you talk about, is that something that, like, is it noticed or something that you send out to, how does that work? Do people just have to come to you, or is it?
The letter of interest process is advertised in Native Sun News as well as the Rapid City Journal, and we do a direct email broadcast to over 250 individuals, folks that may have requested information from our division previously and or applied. And so that's how we solicit folks to see that letter of interest process, and that's how we receive those.
I appreciate that. And I know at the Legal and Finance Committee, I voted no because I had some questions. I've since talked to some of your board members, and I've talked to some of my colleagues here to explain some of the nuances that have to be fulfilled to get one of these grants. It's not an easy deal. It just it's fairly complicated, and I think that Alderman Drew is correct that the complications that arise to to get the money, and then also to actually, go through the process to keep the money and meet the requirements to get them to have the money is sometimes very complicated. So I would guess that if there was somebody out there that maybe felt uncomfortable, had some level of it, that we would work with them. Mr. Mayor, I guess that would be the question too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is absolutely what our office is tasked with doing, is to make sure that the subrecipients, those nonprofits who are receiving funding, understand the obligation so that we mitigate risks for the city. But a good bulk of what we do is technical training and helping them be successful.
Thank you, and I'll just leave you with one note. I've been back since for probably about a year and a half, and I really appreciate what you bring to the table for the CBG. I haven't had a chance to chime in on that, and I wanted to do that at this point, so thank you.
Okay, we have a motion from Lehman to approve and a second by Roberts. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes on item 43. Now we're going to alcoholic beverage license renewals, item 44. I don't get this item. I don't get this item. Where are the?
There is an attachment with all of the businesses that have turned in their applications.
Missed it. Sorry about that. Is council aware of this attachment and have had a chance to review it? The item is to approve the 2022 alcoholic beverage license renewals for the December 6, 2021 City Council meeting. Motion approved by Jones, second by Roberts. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I assume the police department doesn't have any issues with any of these.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, we have a motion for item 44 for approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 46.
Don't even.
Item 45, under council items and liaison reports, approve a request from Alderwoman Drew to have staff bring forward to the City Council for its approval an amendment to Section 6.08.020 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, reducing the minimum distance for keeping of chickens or other fowl from an occupied structure from 150 feet to 50 feet, and to reduce the minimum lot size from 3 acres to 0.25 acres. And committee denied this 3-2. Let's start with Darla Drew.
Well, nobody can say I'm not tenacious. I do keep bringing this back. I personally do not want to raise chickens, as been said in the journal. These nails don't raise chickens, okay? Just saying. I have a couple questions. Do we have anybody from the Humane Society here? I don't see anyone. Could I direct my questions to Pat Jones, since he's our liaison?
You may.
Okay. Pat, just a couple questions. I know that the Humane Society is not a fan, but from what I know, and I'm going to ask you as a council person and as our liaison, do we have any ordinances against barking dogs that keep people awake all night and just, you know, in their yard? Is there any problem with that?
Yes.
We do?
Yes, we do.
What is that ordinance?
I can't identify it, but it would be the loud barking dog ordinance.
I don't believe it.
Get that as State's Exhibit number 1.
LBDO.
Okay. I don't know that exists, I guess. Okay.
Well, there are rules and things that exist on how people's animals have to behave, and should they not act in an acceptable manner, people can call animal control, and an animal control officer will go out and intervene with the animal owner to try to correct whatever the complaint is. So although I can't quote chapter and verse the ordinance, I'm not going to bark up the wrong tree and say that there actually is one, but I know there are rules and regulations that exist on how
I think there's
animals
noise
behave.
regulations, but I don't know if it applies to dogs, because that's one of the complaints I get. There is one, a barking dog ordinance.
We're in the court.
Okay, thank you, thank you. How about, do we control litters of cats or dogs, or anybody that wants to breed dogs or animals anywhere? Can somebody just breed a bunch of golden retrievers, or what's that?
Hold on. What is your point of order, Mr. Roberts?
This has nothing.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But What I'm trying to get to, Mr. Roberts, is the fact that we allow just about everything else, and chickens are really not a big problem, and that we've made everything else around them a problem when they're really not any more than barking dogs, litters, cat ladies that have 17 cats.
Let's just narrow
or
it down a little
bees.
bit to chickens, please.
Okay, all right. Do I have anybody from Urban Hands here? I don't think I do. Okay. So what I'd like to do is just...
Am I off the leash then at this time? Thank you.
I do want to remind this group that we did approve bees not too long ago. And part of that direction was that the bee group would help with controlling the bee population. So I have the same kind of assurance from the Urban Hands group that they would help with controlling any urban hands that would get loose or cause a problem for the Humane Society. So this was to bring this forward again with just a lot size to make it easy for our staff to go ahead and say yes to this. And that's one of the reasons I brought it up as I did, just as an ordinance change, with no other limits in mind. So that's what I'm looking for tonight. I don't know if I'll get it, but this is just my last try, my attempt at getting chickens in the city. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from people that would like to see this happen, and I know that's not the experience for a lot of the council people, but I would really like to see this get approved. So I'm going to yield and hear from my friends on the council.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I know as this has been discussed several times since I've been on the council, some good ideas that have come forward would be to offer it as a 90-day trial to see if the problems that many people say exist actually do exist, or if it can actually work. And that might be a way to approach it, to try it and see. And if it is problematic, then we pull the plug. If it works, then it's allowed to press on, because there are many people who want it and there are many people who don't. So that might be a way to approach it. Also, the neighbor approval issue may need a second look. Would that stay with the property owner, or would if someone sold their house, would the next owner have to give their approval, that kind of thing? So there may be some ways to make this successful, but I would like these two items to be considered as well as if this moves forward. Thank you.
Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to table the item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to table the item from Lehman, a second from Roberts. There's no discussion on the tabling motion, so go directly to a vote, and I think we'll go to a roll call vote with this. This motion is to table this item.
Lehman.
Aye.
Drew.
No.
Nordstrom.
No.
Evans. Roberts. Stroman. Jones.
Aye.
Solomon. Weifenbach. Armstrong.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-1.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay,
Can I count
motion
that?
passes. Motion to table passes.
8-2 or 7-2?
7-2.
Okay.
All right.
I would like to make this group aware of one thing before we go off this, Mayor. I'll probably be working with the Urban Hands and asking some help with leadership to bring this to a vote of the public. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to, takes us on to public hearing items 46 through 50. We'll open the public hearing comment period, and there are no speaker requests. However, we have a presentation, so we're going to have agenda item number 4 right now. We'll go to Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to do a very brief introduction of some city staff and some of the major details here. In 2016, the City Council approved a facility plan for our water reclamation facility, identifying The need for improvements, the original plant was built in 1967 with additional improvements made in 2003. We've got to continue the process of making sure that we have adequate water reclamation facilities for our customers and for our community. So we've got to do this public hearing item here, which will inform you of the details of the project. We do have a subsequent item, item 48, which is a funding application. It does not bind the city to any funding at this time. Even when we submit the application, that still doesn't bind the city to any funding. Anyway, I'm going to let the presentation begin here, and I'd like to introduce Eddie Lopez. He's a city project manager on this project, and he's going to kick off the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Tech. Mayor, Council, good evening. I'm Eddie Lopez. I'm the project manager for the Water Reclamation Facility, South Plant Improvements Projects. I'm here tonight along with the project team to present the project to the Council and to the public. At this time, I'd like to introduce HDR's project manager, Dale Ron Peters. He will be speaking on the facility plan. It has been prepared for the grant application, followed up by Black Hills Council of Local Governments, Jennifer Sietsma, which will be speaking on the funding opportunities for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll walk through this presentation. This is for the City of Rapid City's improvements at the water reclamation facility. So in talking through the facility, one of the main reasons we have to improve the facility is as Dale noted, and Mr. Tech noted, the aging infrastructure facility is 10 years past its design life. The north plant at the wharf needs to be decommissioned, and the south plant needs to be expanded. Currently, there is available funding through the state SRF plan, which we'll talk about further, and this outside funding minimizes the impact to the ratepayers. This also addresses regulations, water quality regulations that the treatment facility has to meet. This plan prepares the facility for those future regulations. As part of the facility plan, we identified 43,000 additional surface area population, and this new south plant improvements, along with the biosolids handling, will meet those needs. A slide that just recognizes all the work the plant has had done to it over the years to keep it operating. It was originally, the north plant was originally constructed in 1967 with an expansion in 1985. With improvements to keep the plant operating over the years. So today we're looking at capitalizing on some of the federal funding. Applications for this funding is due January 1st for SRF and some associated grant funding. This is just a big picture of the United States where some of the water quality impacts are shown, and where the states have been implementing some of these total nitrogen and total phosphorus limits, and also where the ammonia limits are going to be implemented, and basically shows that South Dakota is really kind of next on the list. A slide showing the growing service area population from 96,000 to 139,000 people over the next 20 years. This slide shows the alternatives that were looked at for the solutions. The selected alternative was in line with the 2002 facility plan, the 2016 facility plan, which is to decommission the aged north plant, simplify the plant by expanding the south plant. This is a picture of the overall improvements in yellow, basically showing the south plant being improved, and then the area in green is the decommissioning of the north plant. This also shows the items identified in the project that need to be improved, with a subtotal of the items for today's permit, the ammonia limits, and the aging infrastructure of $100 million, and then the total nitrogen and total phosphorus improvements would be an additional $45 million. As part of this application, and the facility plan, we are required to send letters to meet environmental compliance for wetlands, waterways, parks, facilities, water quality, and no adverse impacts were found during the investigations for cultural or any of these environmental resources. So this slide describes how this affects the rates for the city. Right now, a $145 million project will only be pursued if 30+% forgiveness or grant funding from the state would be available. The $100 million project will be pursued in any case. The plant needs to be improved. The project will impact rates as shown below with, if there's 0% forgiveness, it would be a 75-year average annual increase in the rate of 7.9%, which is about $3.40 per 5,000 gallons. And then it goes down from there. If there's the 30% forgiveness, it's a 5.6%, and at $145 million, it kind of matches at that 7.7%. I'm going to let Jennifer cover this slide, which kind of talks about where the state is at today.
Good evening, members of the council. Normally I'd say mayor, but looks like he stepped out. So as a requirement of the SRF application, the public hearing, where it's necessary that we cover very specific items to be eligible for the funding. We discussed the need for the project, what the project is, project alternatives, and then we get into the financing side of things where we discuss the type of bond that you're going to use to repay any loan that is awarded. We talk about the rate, the term, and then the impact on the user fees. So the application that you're submitting as the city does not commit you to actually taking on any loan at this point, but the public hearing is required as a part of the application. So obviously they talked about the 2% for 20 years. That's probably the cheapest money you'll ever borrow. One thing to note about that is unless you're using a state or federal program, the city's limited on what they can borrow by state law to 10 years for this type of project. So by using this program, it extends your term and allows you to reduce the impact on users. So that is one of the benefits of applying through the SRF program. $145 million, the engineer talked about how that would impact your rates. So a lot of people maybe don't understand that the SRF program is an annual program. You can submit an application to that quarterly throughout the year. It's a program that exists continually, and it's been around for many years. This year, the legislature obviously has additional funds through ARPA. Well, not the legislature, but our state has additional money. And the proposal from the governor, the recommendation from the governor at this point, is to take $600,000 of our almost 978, or I'm sorry, $600 million of $978 million available to our state through the ARPA Act, and putting that into the DA&R programs that fund the SRF, the State Revolving Fund Loan Program and Grant Program. So the $600 million has not been awarded to DA&R programs at this time, but that is what the governor is going to propose, and that is what DA&R is going to talk to the legislature about, but that has not been approved. So it's important to understand that even though we're hopeful that these funds will be put into the DA&R programs to fund some of these projects, it's not a done deal yet. The 30% grant determination, so many of you are probably aware of the emails that came out from DA&R regarding the availability of ARPA funds and how they plan to disperse those funds for the 190 applications that were submitted statewide on the state water plan in October. So with that, you can see on the slide that $3,000 per person maximum for projects, but it'd be unlikely that you would see that based on your population due to where your rates are currently at. So the $55 per 5,000 gallon rate is where the state has been over the last 3 years for people applying for funding. The threshold, so to be eligible for grant, you have to be at $30 per 5,000 gallons, but they've actually got a threshold of 55. So what they do when they make the awards for these projects is they use 55 as the threshold. So if you're sitting at $36, typically in a typical year you would raise your rates to almost 50 or 55 before you'd see any grant subsidy. In this year it's going to be a little bit different. They still have that threshold, or that's what went out in the email. But again, when you submit your funding application, you're not asking for, you don't get to ask for, we want 30% grant or 50% principal forgiveness. You submit a funding application for the total project, and the Board of Water and Natural Resource, based off of their staff recommendation, will make a decision on your application. And at that point, if the city for some reason didn't like the funding package you were given, you would have the opportunity to reject that. Okay. Okay, so as a requirement of the public hearing requirement for this application, you do have to provide an opportunity to the public to ask questions or provide input on the project.
Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to ask questions or provide input on this project or this presentation? Any members of the audience would like to weigh in on this? Seeing none, we'll go to Council Member Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm not sure who to direct my question to, but it'll be to one of you that just recently spoke. 2 questions. The decommissioned plant, can you explain a little bit what decommission means and what happens to that facility once it's fully decommissioned, please?
Yeah, so we'll be looking at the facilities the reason we use the word decommissioned, because there is going to be opportunity to use some of the facilities for future uses, for storage, for materials and those kind of things, but they can no longer be used as part of the process. There are several tanks along the way that are just be taken out because they're built in 1967 in poor condition and need to be taken out. But some of the facilities we're going to evaluate for storage and reuse.
Okay, thank you very much. Then my next question is the $55 for 5,000 gallons, and maybe Dave Van Cleve can answer this, I'm not sure. What does a person in Rapid City right now pay for 5,000 gallons? Eddie?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so right now we have that calculated out to about proposed increase rates for next year. It'll be $36.55.
$36.55?
That's correct.
Okay. And so then that difference between that and the 55, Jennifer touched on a bit. Does that impede us from being able to get the grant?
My understanding is it does not.
So in a typical year, what you would see for a project like this is they would have the city, they would award you in a way that you would take on enough loan to get you to that $55 rate, and then the rest would be awarded in grant, or typically that's how we see it in communities that are not like Rapid City. So
Well, there would be a
smaller.
loan to fill that gap to make it as if it was $55 per, and then go from there?
Yes, that would be in a typical year, but this year, with the possibility of having additional grant dollars available to the program, I wouldn't bet on anything I already know about the program just because of the additional dollars that are available. When they did their projections, I believe that what they're looking at is by the time the project is done and we get into that repayment, we will have done incremental increases maybe each year, so we're going to be much closer.
We'll be much closer to the $55 by the end of the 5 years. We'll be much closer by the end of the 55 years.
So that impact on users showed, I think, $3.40. That's per year, and it would go up incrementally as the debt service repayment kicks in.
So then how long would it take to get from $36.55 to $55?
So right now, we did the analysis, and it'll be about 5 years. So by the time we complete the project, we would be right at almost 55, depending on other
Okay.
the size of the increase that we make from here to then.
Because that $19 change over 5 years may not seem like a lot, but there will be people that impacts a lot. So we need to make sure we know and we educate our customers that is coming, certainly. Thank you.
So some of the debt service repayment, one thing to know is you can restructure your rates to allow for existing revenues that you're drawing to help on the debt service for this project. And so I think when we evaluated the numbers, it appears that some of your existing debt service that you're paying on existing loans will fall off. And so then you will end up just reapplying that to the debt service on this loan rather than having to do the full increase.
So we don't have to go to the 55. As long as there's enough money from all the other places to make that number work, we don't have to go to $55 over 5 years.
That's correct, because the bond that you're choosing to use is a revenue bond. So as long as you have the revenues in your sewer fund to cover the debt service on the loan, 110% debt service on the loan, you wouldn't have to raise them to that point. 55 is kind of an odd number because in previous years for all other funding applications, that was the threshold for grant. We don't know what we'll see this year in the legislature and on the Board of Water and Natural Resources decisions simply because of the additional grant dollars available to the state.
Thank you very much. I'll yield, Mayor. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Comments or questions for the panel, if I may?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got several items here to go through, so if you don't mind, I'll just list my items, and then as your topic of interest comes forward, because of my time limitation, hopefully you'll be able to address that. There is what I call a casualty list out there at the water reclamation facility right now that's going through the capital planning process. A lot of those items cannot be replaced, or there's no ability right now unless we manufacture or produce it ourselves of some kind. So if you could address that, and then the cost comparison of that with the current planning for the user fee increases. So because I see that if there's an expense for the capital list that has to be, or capital projects that has to be done, kind of want to know the difference between that and then the equipment failure that is taking place right now at the facility, if there is equipment that is failing right now, and then if someone could address the starting the application process, when that takes place. I understand this is a public hearing, but the next step will be when, and then the governor's budget will be will be presented. I'm going to try to listen to it on public radio tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be able to get some more answers from that, or maybe create some additional questions. And then I'm also, if you have an opportunity to expand or elaborate on the discussion that we just had on the user fee adjustments, how that's going to be phased in, just a little bit more elaboration on that. So that's my list of questions. So if anybody wants to jump in and take over, please do.
I'll take 5 of the 10.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm just limited on time.
No, that's good. I got it. So the main things at the treatment plant right now is the 1967 and the 1985 portions of the plant are in the concrete is in poor repair. It's to the point where we've inspected, we've had structural, HVAC experts, mechanical and architects look at the plant, and the repairs to the plant would be more expensive than to decommission it. So the wet well for the trickling filter feed pumps is really in a state of disrepair right now, just due to the age and condition and the oxidation of the concrete. The RBCs, which treat downstream of the trickling filters, have experienced some failures right now, and several of the units are out of operation, and we're doing kind of an emergency repair project to get those back in service. So there are a number of things on that side of the plant that are have been identified back in the 2002 as being geared to be taken out of service just through age of life. And then back in 2016, again, this was the expectation, and now we're really seeing the items that are failing at the plant that just really need to be taken out of service and moving forward with this project. So if that answers your question on the items of disrepair, that really is the 1967 and 1985 portions of the plant that just have reached their service life.
Yeah, just briefly on the cost comparison, it would be more expensive to upgrade or maintain that equipment that's failing and...
That's correct.
Yeah.
And one thing to mention also is that the north plant does not treat to the level that the south plant does. So
True.
the issue is going to be that the north plant is being phased out also because it's not going to meet the regulations. So very good question. Let's see if I can remember the next question.
The starting of the application, I know it's tonight, but the next step will be, when does that start?
So the funding application is almost complete as far as filling out the paperwork. We started that about a month ago, and Eddie's been really good about collecting all the information that's needed for that. So if you pass the resolution that is required to be able to sign the application this evening, I believe his anticipated date is to have that completed before the end of the month. The deadline is January 1st, and then the meeting, the Board of Water and Natural Resource will meet on that the last Thursday in March. So you would have your answer on what your funding package is at that meeting.
And the last question I had was the adjustments for the user fees being phased in, and if we didn't do that, it sounds like it's going to be more expensive to fix, maintain, repair. So just a comparison with the...
So I would say I don't want people to get scared or freaked out about the $55 rate, because it's possible you won't, as a city, ever make it to that rate. If you can raise your rates sufficient to cover the debt service without getting to that, then you're not required to go to that $55 rate. And this year is an anomaly because of ARPA. There's a possibility you would still see grant or principal forgiveness on this project without ever getting to that $55 rate.
Yes, and that goes into 26 as well, correct? Yep. The project completion application, forgive me, I can't remember the exact language, but it has to be completed by 2026.
That's correct. The grant funding has to be expended by 2026.
Thank you. I better yield. Thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, do we need a motion to acknowledge the presentation? No? Okay. Secondly, a few years ago, we went through quite a bit of work in order to adjust our rates in order to pay for projects such as this with our water rates and water reclamation rates through the rate adjustments. Does that at all take into account those rate adjustments that we did a lot of study and we had a public vote for it, yet we still ended up voting for it as a council? Just curious what role that plays into funding.
That's correct. The rates that were reflected today include your current status and the impact of this new plant above and beyond those rate increases.
So just to be clear, and it looks like Dale Tech probably knows what I mean, that we aren't looking to raise rates beyond what we've already adjusted rates for. Is that correct? Because that was the rationale behind that rate adjustment.
That's correct. As part of any sort of rate analysis, we adopted a 5-year rate package. Started in 2018 and will go through the year 2022. As part of a updated analysis for a 5-year rate structure, any and all debt, any and all improvements that we need to the system will be figured into that rate structure. So depending upon where this project goes, we will be doing another rate analysis in the year 2022 to be effective in the year 2023. And that should lay out the rate structure for the next 5 years. So it's too early to tell what the actual effect on rates is going to be until we know what happens in March based on the funding application that we submit by January 1st. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a presentation, so we're not even to the actual item yet, but, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd just like, because of our microphones, I didn't get all your names, I didn't get your titles, where you're from, whatever. I mean,
Jennifer Sietsma with Black Hills Council of Local Governments, and I'm the Executive Director.
thank you.
Eddie Lopez, Project Engineer for Public Works Department.
Delron Peters, wastewater engineer for HDR Engineering.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I think that's it then for the presentation and the public comment period. We'll close the public comment period, close the public hearing, and we'll move on to consent public hearing items 46 through 48. Would the council like to remove any of these items or vote for them all at once? Motion to approve consent from Lehman. Second by Stroman, was it? Okay. We have a motion to approve 46 through 48. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Non-consent public hearing items 49 and 50, starting with item 49. Second reading, ordinance 6513, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for Dennis Zanstra Real Estate Holdings for a rezoning request from no-use district to low-density residential district 2 for property generally described as being located south of the intersection of Palmar Drive and Camus Drive. Motion to approve by Evans and second by Lehman. All in favor of approval of item 49, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 50, request to approve resolution 2021-052 by KTM Design Solutions for 605 storage. This is the item that we've been continuing since November, and the recommendation is to continue this item again to the January 3rd City Council meeting. Motion by Lehman to move to January 3rd. Second by Pat Jones. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 51 is the bill list. We'll go to Assistant Finance Director Tracy Davis.
I do have one addition to the bill list for a payment to the South Dakota Retirement System in the amount of $41,802.79, bringing the new total to $12,181,632.24.
Motion by Solomon to approve the revised list. Second by Pat Jones.
I have a question.
Darla Drew.
Hello, Tracy. Was that our mistake, or was that a state mistake on that amount?
So
is it addition or what?
It is an addition payment. It's a penalty that South Dakota Retirement has assessed to us, yes.
It's a penalty to us?
Correct.
For what?
Missed a deadline.
What?
We missed a deadline.
Okay. I got to ask, how did we miss the deadline?
I don't have all the details of that. We have to have the retirement contributions and all reports submitted to the retirement system by the 15th of each month. And we didn't receive notification from anyone that they hadn't received it because someone thought that they had done it until the 17th, and they got the money on the 19th. So.
Okay, well, I wanted to
It
know
is
why
5% of the amount of the payment.
Okay.
It is a big chunk, yes.
Yes, it is. So, thank you. We've got another one in the queue, so I'm going to yield.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. Is that appealable, Tracy?
It is not. I had Carla in the attorney's office research that for me, and she said there is a grievance policy, a general grievance policy. However, there's nothing specific allowing us to grieve this penalty.
Thank you. I yield.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this revised bill list. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Boy. Opposed? Motion carries. The motion, okay, motion to adjourn from Nordstrom. Second by Stroman. Anyone object? Okay, we're adjourned, everyone. Thank you.